For weeks on end, I kept seeing pictures of obese Brendan Fraser and memes from The Whale. It didn't matter what I did, whether that be scrolling on social media, listening to podcasts, or even in my dreams, I just kept seeing the same image that was being plastered everywhere. So after being stalked and harassed for weeks, I said, alright, I'll bite. I haven't seen a Brendan Fraser movie since The Mummy. Surely this couldn't be that bad, right? After watching this movie, it felt like I watched Derrick Rose get injured all over again. For me being this happy-go-lucky guy, I sure as hell didn't walk away from this movie happy, but more so depressed. Anyways, I'm Owen, or Thought Cake, and today I'll be talking about The Whale, a movie that lets us watch a 600-pound man's depression and guilt take over his final days. So sit back and relax, and let's jump into the video.
Welcome.
So, after a brief retirement, Brendan Fraser decided to come back and put on a masterclass for this movie, and left audiences stunned. The Whale is a movie based on the 2012 play of the same name. The movie centers around Charlie, played by Brendan Fraser, who is a 600-pound man who is an online college professor, who after the death of his husband is forced into reclusiveness. In this point in his life, eating and literature are the only things that keep him alive and happy. After Charlie ends up having a false heart attack, we are introduced to Thomas, played by Ty Simpkins, who is a Jehovah's Witness who is a part of the New Life program and wants to save Charlie in the name of the Lord. Amen. And Liz, played by Hung Chow, who is essentially Charlie's angel by being his only friend and caretaker through his time of grief. Liz wants Charlie to go to a hospital just so he can be taken care of by professionals, in case he has congestive heart failure, and of course Charlie says no. And you know what? I don't blame him one bit, because boy, that American healthcare sure ain't cheap. That's for true. That's definitely for true. Throughout the movie, we see that Charlie is trying to reconnect with his estranged daughter Ellie, who is played by Sadie Sink. Sadie Sink puts on an amazing performance as Ellie, who is basically a scorned yet heartbroken teenage girl who is angry at her dad and the world. Charlie hadn't seen Ellie in so long that she felt that he abandoned her for 8 years. Ellie comes off as extremely unlikable and annoying to most people, but after knowing the complete reason why, I actually understand her frustration. Charlie finally gets a hold of Ellie and offers her $120,000 and to write her essays if she just comes and visit her dad for a little while. Now, Ellie, who seems hesitant about it at first, eventually comes around to the idea and starts to visit Charlie for a while. One of the most important things about The Whale is an essay about Moby Dick. Every time it seems like Charlie is about to die, he needs to hear this essay. At first, I thought it was pretty stupid because what's so special about this essay? But it plays an extremely important part to this movie because this essay means a lot to Charlie. I'll dive back into this essay a little later, so remember this. Another key plot device in The Whale is a relationship Charlie establishes with his pizza man, named Dan. Dan the Pizza Man. That rhymes. Anyways, Charlie loves to eat. Like, there was a point in the movie where Liz saves him from choking, only for him to go back and eat the same thing he was choking on. Eating is the only thing that keeps him going, and it paints a sad parallel to a lot of people in real life. Throughout the movie, Charlie has a system where he gets 2 large pizzas delivered to him, and he puts money in the mailbox so he doesn't have to come to the door. He orders pizza so frequently that he always usually gets the same guy to deliver his pizza. So anytime Dan delivers, he tries to basically start a conversation with Charlie, basically to see what's up and how he's doing. Charlie rudely rushes him away every time and tells him the money is just in the mailbox, which is just frustrating. Like, bro, I'm basically at your house every day. I just want to get to know you a little bit so I can see how you are. Anyways, that's all you really need to know about Dan for now, but I will bring him back up in a little bit. So Ellie comes over, and now we're playing a game of how much chaos can happen in the next 30 minutes. A lot of really depressing shit happens in the next 30 to 45 minutes. This is the point in the movie where I started to get pissed off. Where do we even start? So Ellie decides to pull off her best Bill Cosby impersonation and decides to drug her dad, which I still don't get, but okay. Then Ellie and Thomas decide to smoke weed to the point where we find out Thomas is a fucking fraud, who is just happy to run away from his parents. All the while, Ellie is just secretly recording him and telling Thomas what he wants to hear. Thomas feels good after this interaction and runs off. So then here comes Liz coming to save Charlie's life again. But this time, here comes Mary, played by Samantha Morton, who is Charlie's ex-wife. Mary decides to spill the beans about the $120,000, and then this pisses off Liz because Charlie went on and on about how he couldn't afford healthcare, but had this money hidden. So Liz storms out. This is then followed by a verbal tussle between Charlie and Mary, where Mary blames Charlie for the downfall of their family, but Charlie wants to know that he at least did one thing right, and Mary storms out. To finally end this proverbial car crash, Charlie gets his pizza again. Hooray! Well, not hooray. Remember Dan from just a few minutes ago? Yeah, so Dan does his usual routine, and Charlie, thinking he's gone, decides, okay, I'm going to go get the pizza. Dan sees Charlie. Charlie sees Dan. Dan runs away in disappointment. Now, at first, I thought this was the weirdest scene in the movie, but looking back on it and the psychology of things, this has to be the saddest scene in the movie. Mainly because Dan finally realizes what he's doing, and you can see the pain in his face when the camera pans over to him. Dan is more so disappointed with himself than he is with Charlie, because now Dan knows the fact that he's helping with creating this monster and this morbidly obese man who is slowly killing himself. Like, after seeing that, if I'm Dan, I'd probably quit my job. Like, my mental can't take this anymore. This then sends Charlie into a gluttonous rage. He basically tells his student to write something fucking honest, and he decides to game over himself by overeating, which in turn just makes him more sicker and even more upset. The last sequence of events stuck with me so hard that I mentally just tuned out through the rest of the movie. Thomas basically comes back the next day, thanking Charlie for everything and how he's excited to leave the slums of Idaho to go back home. But before he leaves, Thomas basically asks this man, "Are you sure you want to die a gay man?" So Charlie eats this man alive, and thankfully we never see Thomas ever again. The end. Nah, I'm kidding, there's more. So basically, after all that trauma dumping, we are at the tail end of the movie, and Charlie reveals that he has been fired, and thanks his students for the essays. In one last ride, Charlie finally shows his entire situation. He shows his face, then his body, and then his living situation, and basically tells his students to be free before throwing his laptop and breaking it. So Liz and Charlie have this heartwarming moment. Liz wants Charlie to go to the hospital. However, Charlie has pretty much accepted his fate. He's fine with dying. Liz, who doesn't want to watch him die, tells him that she'll wait downstairs for him. That's when Ellie decides to come back, and boy, she comes in hot. Absolutely furious that she got an F on her essay. Charlie then tells Ellie to read the essay to him. We then end up finding out that this essay we've been hearing all along was Ellie's careless essay on Moby Dick from the 8th grade. And this essentially being the only way Charlie has kept up with his daughter, because Mary cut Charlie off completely from ever seeing Ellie again. This is Charlie's last request. He wants his daughter to read the essay, so she starts, but on and on, she becomes more vulnerable and starts getting upset that there's nothing she can do to save her dying father. Charlie assures her that everything is going to be fine. For the first time in this movie, Charlie takes steps towards Ellie, with this being the first time Charlie has taken any steps without support. They finally both embrace this moment and look at each other with smiles before Charlie gets abducted by aliens, setting up the Whale cinematic universe. No, but Charlie dies, and it's a peaceful moment knowing he went out to his daughter reading him the one thing he wanted to hear the most. Now that we went through an entire spoiler-filled look back at The Whale, We are left to find out what the whale really means. Personally, what I came out with from my experience of watching this movie is that this movie touches on a lot of mental health issues, and it does it well to the point where it's not annoying. Some of the topics of mental health you can catch from the whale are depression, reclusiveness, eating disorder, all of this being what Charlie is going through because of the loss of his partner. It had gotten to the point where the only thing that really made Charlie happy was the next meal and good essays. Watching this movie gives you the authentic feeling of someone's poor mental health, and instead of waving it around that this character is depressed like some shows and movies do. Example being 13 Reasons Why, where it feels like you know what message they're trying to display, but it feels more forced and in your face than anything. This also was the perfect role for Brendan Fraser, and may have been his most passionate role of all time. I have been saying all my life that I don't like The Mummy. I feel that series is incredibly stupid. It's an Indiana Jones ripoff, even though I don't really like Indiana Jones either, and they didn't need more than one movie. Mummy diatribe aside, Brendan Fraser knocked this role out of the park. I won't say that this is his best role of all time. I mean, George of the Jungle exists, duh. But he just fits better in drama roles. My personal favorite role Brendan Fraser has done has been his role in Scrubs as Ben. I won't do the explanation much justice here, but Brendan Fraser is only in 2 episodes of that show, and they're beautiful episodes. If you have the time, definitely watch them. They're the episodes titled My Occurrence and My Screw Up. Seriously, you might love his performance in those episodes the same way that I did. I also feel like this role connects deeper with Brendan Fraser as well. Like, it's a stone cold parallel into his actual mental traumas. The main reason Brendan Fraser had this whole retirement is because he was SA'd in Hollywood by Hollywood producers, which ended up making Fraser reclusive for a long period of time. Brendan Fraser in an interview states, "It made me retreat. I felt reclusive. It has even gotten to the point where he had started to blame himself, which led him to stepping away from acting in big-time movies up until The Whale."
Emotional distress, it was causing me personal distress.
In 2003, he says the former president of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, Philip Burke, groped him during a luncheon at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Burke has consistently denied the allegations, saying he only pinched him as a joke. But to Fraser, the intent didn't matter.
But it sounded like it really derailed everything, right?
Well, yes, because there's a system in place that is about power. And I had played by the rules up until that point. And I felt like, okay, now suddenly I've been violated and it has gone too far.
So there are a lot of parallels between Charlie and Brendan Fraser. But the thing I'm happy about the most is that Brendan Fraser actually made it back from the hell of his mind at the time and came back strong. And after researching all of this and knowing the story, I'm glad he came back to doing what he loves in good graces. Overall, should you watch The Whale? Yes. It's an incredibly upsetting movie, but it's worth the watch. It's a tale of redemption as Charlie desperately tries to win his daughter back in his final days, while also suffering with the inner grief and depression that has built up inside of him ever since his husband's death. Definitely go check out The Whale. Anyways, this is the first time that I've ever talked about a movie or a TV show on this channel, so any type of feedback would be amazing. So let me know if I cooked for real, or if I ended up burning the kitchen down. I'm no stranger to burning the kitchen down when I cook. However, until next time, make sure you drink lots of water, and I'll see you in the next video. Sayonara.
Goodbye.